Good afternoon, happy Thursday, and welcome back to season 3 of The Hunt. To all of our loyal viewers and first-time watchers, welcome. We are excited to be back. Very long negotiations with the different producers and entertainment authorities, and I got the contract I wanted, so I'm finally back in business. For those that haven't watched the show before, this is our live series dedicated towards helping hiring managers and candidates navigate the world of recruiting, touching on all different situations that you face throughout the recruiting process and giving you advice from the perspective of the professionals that work in this space every single day, those of us that happen to be fortunate enough to work in the recruiting industry. So I'm managing director at Advice Personnel. We're a boutique recruitment agency serving the New York market for over 35 years, and I'm bringing that knowledge to you in this format. The beauty of this show is that it's meant to be interactive. So wherever you're watching from, chime in, use the comment box, let me know where you're coming in from. If you have any questions throughout the show, things you want me to touch on, things you want to get specific perspective on, add those questions as we go, and I'll get to them in interactive form throughout the show. But so glad to be back, happy to have you, and hopefully get some value out of this week's episode. And this week's episode's a big one, because I'm sure everyone's heard about it by now. This job market is absolutely inexplicably active. It's a candidate-driven market, and we're finding that companies are bearing the worst of it. So the companies we're working with, what we're finding is on average are probably offering the same job to at least 3 or 4 different candidates before they finally get an acceptance. And it's really demoralizing. Your team is interviewing these people. They're getting excited about certain ones. They keep getting to the end of the process. They don't end up coming on board. So they're wondering what's going on. We need the help. You as a hiring manager are getting exhausted and burnt out. You don't want to settle on someone that you're not as excited about, but you need to get the hire in place. The bosses are starting to look at you a little differently that you can't get someone on board. So it's a nerve-wracking situation across the board. The good news for everyone, to add a little sunshine to our afternoon here, is that there are a lot of pieces of this that you can control to flip those odds in your favor and help really transform your offer to close ratio. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. 3 very quick tips on how you can completely change the game and make an impact on your ability to close your top candidate so that you're not going back to the well time and time again and ending up with your 3rd or 4th option for the same position. So if you're a hiring manager watching, an HR professional, and you have specific questions about things you've dealt with or have to navigate around, please use the comment box, chime in. I'll be seeing those questions throughout, and I'll get to them as we go. But we'll get rolling with the very first thing and the biggest issue that I'm seeing that companies are struggling with and where they're losing candidates. And we're hearing this directly from the candidates themselves, and that's time management as it relates to the interview process itself. And again, this is fully controllable, fully within the realm of control. Aside from just someone having to be out or reschedule an interview, this is something you can control. Most candidates we're seeing right now have 4, 5, 6 different interview processes in place. And they're ending up getting to a situation in which they get an offer on 1 or maybe 2 or 3, and the others are far behind in the interview process. So it comes down to the old adage, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. I still don't know what that really means in terms of the literal sense, but I can tell you that candidates are feeling pressure. They have offers in front of them. They're not going to risk those offers to wait at the potential of yours coming around unless it's like miraculously better. So how do you control that? Get your process more structured and stay on top of it. A few key tips. Number 1, consolidate wherever you can. If they have to meet 6 different people, don't make it 6 separate meetings in 6 separate days. Group 3 and 3, have the first 3 staggered 30 minutes at a time. If they get through that round, have the second round staggered 30 minutes at a time, and you're through those 6 rounds. If there's a case study mixed in, have it ready. Don't have to wait a couple days to prepare that case study to get it to them. Have set up times for feedback where right when those interviews end, the team regroups and gets feedback together. There's so many tips you can use to consolidate your process, but the number 1 place where companies are losing candidates is they're taking too long to get to the same stage that their other opportunities are at, and they're going in that direction. So it's so critical. Get that figured out up front. You do not want to be sitting on the outside and taking your time. It is so much easier to slow down a process if a candidate is feeling pressure than to speed up a process and try to scramble to catch up if they already have an offer, because then you just look a little desperate and disorganized. So number one thing for you hiring managers out there to think about in HR, go back, revisit, map out your interview process and consolidate wherever you possibly can, so that at the very least, you're the first one to offer and you could slow play it a little bit rather than being the last one to offer and losing these candidates. The second piece where a lot of companies are losing good talent is just overanalyzing and really almost looking for a reason why they need to see more people, looking for a reason why this person might not be right when everything's telling you that they check every single box. It seems like common sense, but a few key mistakes that companies are making right now, I think, is a product of the Tinder effect. And what I mean by that, in Tinder, in the dating age back in the day, you talk to your grandparents or great-grandparents, they met someone, they were 18 years old, they met someone, seemed right, everything seemed good. They said, you know what, let's get married and have a family. And they stayed married for 60, 70 years. In the fairy tale land, at least. Most people have that experience. Nowadays, you have apps like Tinder where it just constantly shows you how many other people are out there, how many better people there might be for you, how many other people might be a little bit better. Even if the person you're with feels special, people are willing to pass that up because there's so many other options readily available. And that's what we're seeing in the hiring market right now. We have clients that are meeting candidates. You meet a great candidate, you like everything about them, they fit the mold, they hit all the bullet points, and you still can't really jump at it because you feel like there just might be someone more perfect. In this job market, you don't have that luxury. So how do you fix that? I think this is about getting comfortable and trusting your interview process and trusting your team. Setting up that structure that makes sure you checked every single box. So when someone gets to the end of that process, if they've hit everything on their scorecard, they've knocked it out of the park, everybody has liked them, you have full faith that, you know what, there might very well be a more perfect person out there, but I can't see a reason why we shouldn't be bringing this person on. So if you have that process in place in this job market and you're feeling good, don't look for a reason to say no. Trust in your reasons to say yes. So critical. And I think a lot of companies are losing talent over the one line of, you know, we only saw one or two people, would really like to see a few more. Well, ask yourself, is there anything wrong with this candidate as to why you wouldn't move? And yeah, this may be your first time hiring someone for this specific role in this specific iteration, but you've probably hired similar people in the past. You've probably hired similar people in other areas recently. So it's not your first time ever hiring ever for a career. So yes, well, it might be new this time around. This might be the only candidate you've seen this time. How do they compare in terms of how much you like them, how your gut tells you about them versus all of the other times you've hired in the past? That is relevant. Don't forget that. It's not your first time ever bringing someone on. So number one we talked about is time and cutting that time down, consolidating your process so you don't lose out on candidates. Number two is overanalyzing and not getting into that trap of paralysis by analysis, where you have a great candidate right in front of you and you still can't find a way to jump at it because you think there's something better out there. Don't get caught up in the Tinder effect. No offense to Tinder. I hope I don't get sued with our new distribution rights here. But if there's not a reason glaring you in the face to not jump at this person, don't look for one. And the last and final place where we're seeing candidates get lost in the shuffle and get lost by candidates is due to a lack of market understanding by companies, specifically as it relates to compensation. Compensation is always a hot topic. Companies don't want to feel like they're overpaying. You have to keep things within certain bands. You don't want to throw things out of whack with other team members. The market changes, and it changes very quickly. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen clients tell me they've researched some of these market metrics. They have professional consultants that come in, help them understand the market, and they just had that happen a year ago. Within a year, so much changes. And right now, the market is heavily weighted towards candidates. There's a different emphasis and value placed on those candidates based on the market. It's all based on supply and demand. And you have to be prepared to adjust your compensation parameters to properly attract the right candidates. So the solution and how you fix this is first get a hold on realistically where you can get to in your budget, have that number in the back of your mind, and start addressing compensation earlier in your interview process. It should be something that happens at the very first stage. If you have talent acquisition or you have a recruiter that you're working with who's addressing compensation, they need to be feeling that out, getting a sense of how much flexibility there is. Is this a hard number? Is there any wiggle room? Can you go down a little bit more? And having those numbers in place from the very first step of the interview process so that you can start to figure out, can we make this work or not? Because more often than not, you're going to be up against the company that will make it work if they think it's logical and realistic. So make sure you understand that market dynamics change, and salaries don't only change because of inflation. It changes based on supply and demand the same way any economic factor would, the way any commodity would. If you look at gas prices and there's a gas leak in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and it has a major impact on gas prices, that changes overnight. And the same is true of the hiring market. Any resource out there, you have those same dynamics. And you want to make sure you have these things down in order to attract the type of candidates that you really want. So just to recap, and if anyone has any questions or any thoughts, or they're curious about how to take certain approaches to get the kinds of candidates you're hoping for, shoot those notes in now, use the comment box, and hopefully I'll be able to address those in turn. But just to recap, the three biggest places where we're directly seeing candidates moving with other opportunities and where we're seeing companies lose out on their top choices, number one is time management, and taking too long to get to that final stage of an interview process, and you're losing candidates because they already have offers that they have to make a decision on. So consolidate that process. Number two is overanalyzing and having the right candidate in front of you that checks all the boxes, but still convincing yourself you need to see more people. So trust your process, trust you're doing your diligence. And if someone's great, just because they're the first person you've seen doesn't mean they're not the right hire. So be prepared to make that decision if you meet someone that's telling you they're the right fit. And number three is the market cost and understanding market dynamics, and that market compensation changes almost weekly. And you have to understand the market and get the right input and the right advice from the right people who are in it every day to make sure you're making smart decisions and being competitive with the caliber of talent that you're hoping to land. So with that said, we have a question from Eric Belkin, who I can see over the edge of our new desks here. So Eric asks, what's the cost of hiring the wrong person, both in terms of financial and environmental or economic? So I think this goes into play when you end up with your second, third, fourth, fifth option for a hire and you end up getting stressed and pressured. Bringing in the wrong person ultimately at the end of the day can be devastating, especially after going through an arduous hiring process. It has an effect on morale within your team, the culture and environment of your organization. Having a new person come in that's now not working out makes everybody second guess. Well, is this the right environment for me? Is this, am I missing something? Is this not the right place? Should I be looking somewhere else? And financial, the amount of time and cost that it goes into hiring a new person and onboarding a new person only to have that not work out is critical. So you really have to do everything you can. And ultimately, at the end of the day, nothing's perfect. And you're going to hire people that aren't going to work out. You're going to hire people that aren't going to be as effective as you thought they would be. That stuff you can't control. But what you can control are some of these factors that I outlined today that'll hopefully drastically improve your offer to close ratio and getting you closer to hiring your first choice over being left with hiring your fourth or fifth choice for the same role. Right? So I hope this was helpful for anybody watching after the fact. Use the comment box, throw comments in, and I get to those throughout the course of the week. We make sure we try to make this as helpful and valuable as possible for anyone watching. But we're happy to be back. We're going to be back next week with another brand new episode touching on another topic. Make sure you like and follow Advice Personnel on LinkedIn to receive these alerts as we're putting this content out. And make sure you connect with me, send me a message if you have any questions or anything at all that we can do to help your hiring process or your hiring journey, whether from a candidate side or a client side. Happy to help however I can. But I hope everyone enjoyed the season premiere. Hopefully this helps a lot of you companies out there and hiring managers turn your hiring process around. And we'll be back next week with a brand new episode. But hope everybody has a great rest of the week. and an awesome weekend. We'll see you next week for episode 2 of season 3.